Okay, hi everyone. I'm Hilmar Veigar Pétursson, CEO of CCP, and I'm here on special request from Gabi to talk about social organizations at scale. So a little bit about EVE Online. EVE Online is a game that was released 21 years ago. It is literally the first database game. We never sold it as a database game then, and never will, just as our next game will not be sold as a blockchain game, even if it is. So it has about 1.2 million monthly active characters. 40 million characters have been created. It does about 1 million trades per day, 10,000 transactions per second. Almost, obviously, this many per year. 250 million spaceships have been built, and almost all of them destroyed. I come from Iceland. Iceland is a country that just recently had more people than sheep. So when I say almost 1.2 million characters, it's a lot. It's more than the sheep and the people in Iceland combined. We also are quite a big employer of the humans in Iceland, not so much the sheep. 1 in every 800 people that lives in Iceland, works at CCP. I did the ratio for the Philippines. To get a similar ratio, we would have to employ 61,000 people here. Currently, we have none, but let's see. EVE Online, we've also made many other EVE games over the years. Over the 2 decades we've been doing this, about 60 million people have played VR games, mobile games, etc. We just released a new mobile game, Galaxy Conquest. You can try that out. This is me playing EVE Online for the first time. I am on paternity leave. This is 21 years ago. You can see the monitor here. We've come a long way since. Me and my daughter, we reenacted this picture in the pandemic. So it's often like when I say 21 years, how long is that? Well, it's enough for adults to come into existence. The clicker is not great. This also is EVE Online in the beginning. This is the first version of EVE Online. This is a pre-alpha version. As you see, we made it in 2T. This is in 2000, 3 years before it comes out. It was a big deal getting something working on top of a database. Now we see what EVE Online looks today. This is a picture of EVE Online during our Guinness World Record, where 8,000 spaceships were duking it out over a period of a week almost. So we have the Guinness World Record for the biggest PvP fight in games ever. I'm gonna see if the clicker is better here. We've also spent a lot of time upgrading the look of EVE. So this is what EVE Online looked when it came out. Here is what it looks today. We've also upgraded quite a bit in EVE. We've done many expansions. We were actually just releasing our 50th update to EVE Online. The EVE Online that we released 21 years ago and the EVE Online today are very recognizable. It's probably, if you look at Manila 20 years ago and Manila today, EVE is a bit like that. Again, the clicker not great. EVE Online is an open world sandbox where basically everything inside the game is built by the players that are playing it. And if I add up all the hours that people have spent playing EVE Online, and I look at how long it took to build the Pyramid of Giza, of course, we don't know how it was built, but there are estimations. The time is enough to build 10 pyramids. And you could argue, okay, EVE Online or 10 pyramids, is that a good thing? Well, I'm kind of making the point that it is a good thing. So if we look at kind of, these are sort of the notable players of EVE Online, which we've gathered up, kind of this picture, this collage. This really is a world built by EVE players. So all the time that people have been not building pyramids of Giza, they've been playing in EVE Online and building space stations warfare, logistics, friendships, etc. EVE Online at some point gained the status where mainstream media covers wars in EVE Online as if they were actually happening. Routinely we see BBC talk about like billions stolen in online robbery. If you think there are scams in blockchain, you haven't seen anything. Welcome to EVE Online. Here is Wired covering $3,000 worth of virtual goods destroyed in a space battle. Even if EVE Online does not have built-in item trading, people kind of just talk about it as if it does. If you'd like to learn more about EVE Online, we have published 3 history books, Empires of EVE Volume 1 and 2. Number 3 is being written. If you want to take part in it, I would just start playing EVE Online right now. Highly recommend this YouTube documentary. It's 6 hours long, down the rabbit hole. It's good for a long plane ride. Again, with the clicker. It's not all been great. We've had our ups and downs with EVE Online. Sometimes we do great work, sometimes we do bad work. We have literal protests. Generally, we have tried to onboard all of the feedback, even if it's a lot. An example, this is a statue outside of the biggest trade hub in EVE Online. And here it is broken because people spent a day, 3,000 people were shooting at this statue for a whole day in protest. So kind of in a way to represent that, we broke the statue. And it's forever broken there in space. Building monument has become quite of a thing. We see here, this is a monument we built 10 years ago in Reykjavik. So on the plates here is the name of every EVE player that played in the first decade of EVE Online. EVE Online turned 20 last year, so we added another level. So now it's 2 levels, first decade and second decade. And you see people here finding their name on the monument. Then 30 years we'll add another level, and another level, and at some point we will have the pyramid we didn't build. EVE Online is notoriously hard. It's not an easy game. It's very hard to play. Here is the learning curve by an artistic impression. You need several degrees in economies and social theories and whatnot to play it, and it's very hard, and we're not shying away. So this, in a way, is more a feature than a bug. We found out in time, because when the game is very hard, you need help of others to play it. And the help of others kind of represents in a pretty phenomenal community of people that have played EVE Online. Some of which have played EVE Online for 20 years, hold us to a very high standard. We do a lot to engage with the community. Here's a picture from our 20-year anniversary fan fest. 3,000 people came to Iceland. The country grew by 1% while FanFest is in session. For a brief number of time, there are more people than sheep in Iceland. Thanks to players. This is what governance looks like in EVE Online. This is the Council of Stellar Management. Every person there except me is democratically elected. They come to debate with us about the future of EVE Online. And as you see, there is Omerka Gold passionately arguing about or explaining something to me, and I'm squirming there in my chair, trying to figure out how to fix all the things that are broken. EVE Online has been both broken and dying for 20 years. Here's another sort of more happy look of the Council of Stellar Management. This is a different session. Behind them is the sword wall at CCP. If you work for CCP at 10 years, you get a sword on the wall. And as you see, this is just half of them. There are now quite the number of swords in Reykjavik. There's an interesting aspect of EVE Online, which we call the EVE effect, is that EVE Online, by talking to our EVE players, we figured out that EVE gives you both friends and skills. And if you survey EVE players, 73% say they have made a lifelong friend from playing EVE Online. And as we know more and more, that is a beautiful thing. Here are some quotes. I've been able to use EVE to meet other veterans, really have someone to talk to. I'm holding off my wedding until I can fly my corps mate and his family over. I've been able to find myself out of dark hole because there were people there to help me. many beautiful quotes from EVE players throughout the years about this aspect of the game. It's even to the point where this is kind of a meme in the community. So it's a spaceship game. You would think the best ship is a Titan, it's the biggest ship and all that. No, the best ship in EVE Online is friendship. That really is what makes different. If you have friends in the game, you really are more likely to succeed. This, of course, is a big topic. Loneliness is the biggest health crisis in the world. People are having less friends today than 20 years ago. But if I, again, look at EVE players, the average EVE player has more friends than the average person on planet Earth. It's even to the point we found the formula on how you make a friend. It's a psychological framework we use when you think about the game. Friendship is made by proximity, frequency, duration, and intensity, like how intense the experience is. I'm sure all of you guys that have been in crypto for a long time, you appreciate the friends are made in the bear market, not the bull market. It is the intensity of going through things that makes a friend, and EVE Online has a lot of that. And you would think, I mean, EVE Online is a PvP sandbox game. You would think people that like to compete, I like to do combat, I like to explore, would be the most satisfied people in EVE. It actually is the people that self-report they like to help others. So this, again, is a lot about the hardness of the game and the punishing nature of the game. When the game is so punishing and so hard, there's just a lot of opportunity to help. And if I survey the people who's the happiest, the people that self-identify as helpers enjoy the most out of EVE Online. So by making a game that is super hard, you have made an environment where people need help. Not what we planned, but interesting kind of emergent effect from EVE. Often the friendships turn into other types of relationship. Friendship is often the first step. Here I am marrying players at the EVE Fan Fest 10 years ago. Now the Space Pope does the marrying. We literally have a Space Pope. So the other side of the equation is that by playing a game that is so hard and requires so much social organization, people learn a lot of skills. EVE has given me a well-paid project management job, assisted me in my career as a real-life elected politician. So EVE is a lot about politics and memes and psychological warfare. Not surprising that people take that over to real politics in real life. EVE landed a job, my current job, as a business controller. One day I looked at all the IT infrastructure in EVE. This is cool. I wish I knew how to. Now I'm a junior web developer. EVE finds a way. EVE has taught me patience, also have taught me patience, made me catch on the concept of stats. There are many anecdotes where, as they say, 56% of EVE players have used EVE skills in their real life. A lot of it is about Excel. If we look like what specifically have we learned, there's a lot of planning that needs to happen in EVE and coordination. It's like all companies in the world run on Microsoft Excel, and so does EVE Online. Macroeconomics, leadership, teamwork, marketing, and programming. And it's interesting, you would think programming would be higher, but that is more people identify. You would think a game like this would be higher on programming than leadership, but again, social organization at scale. So we're now in the third decade of EVE Online. We're a year into the third decade. We just released a new expansion for EVE. Go play that. It's free to play. And we're doing a big event of a new game we're making next week on the 28th of November. There is a test of a first-person shooter we're developing that connects into EVE Online, and these two games will share an economy. Very exciting thing. I talked about Galaxy Conquest. You can go to the App Store and download that. It's another EVE game we just released. But if I can click. Yeah, I'll just skip this. So again, talking about social organization at scale. So here are some of the biggest alliances in EVE Online. So the guilds, as in YGG, type guilds, are called alliances in EVE. Pandemic Horde, Goon Swarm, Fraternity are the three biggest ones. So if I add up the core members for that, I get a bigger number than the UK military. So the three biggest alliances in EVE Online, the war game EVE Online, are bigger than the UK military. So you can just imagine how you coordinate something like the UK military and three alliances in EVE Online. That is the scale of the social organization. It is the size of armies. And a lot of people which we play, why have we played EVE Online for 20 years? It's usually this, when a group depended on me for an important task. So, and now I think we're playing a video. Or okay, what we are watching here is an event in EVE Online that happens about a month ago. So one of the major alliances that we saw before is now moving regions between EVE Online. And you're watching a time lapse of something that took many days. So they're moving their fleet of spaceships across the galaxy. So there are like tens of thousands of people which have organized themselves to both execute the move of all the assets and protect the route so nobody goes and destroys everything while it's going on. So you're seeing this sped up because watching it in actual time would take forever. So you can just imagine the value, the estimated value of the assets that were moved were $68 million. So you can imagine coordinating tens of thousands of people to move $68 million in an open PvP sandbox game. This requires quite the logistics and another Guinness World Record. I'm sure we're talking to them. A lot of EVE Online actually happens outside of what we have created. EVE Online has an API to the database, and it's now to the point that half the transactions that happen in EVE Online are developed outside of CCP. So it's third-party developers which are building extensions through an API. So now we are sort of in the project, which is called eFrontier, which we'll talk about more now, which is about like sort of reinventing the game. If we were to like make EVE today and on a blockchain, what would it be like? And it's very much inspired by this third-party ecosystem that has happened on the database. And this quote speaks a lot to me. If you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, an apple pie being EVE Online and now eFrontier, you must first invent the universe. And I'm now at a point in time in my life where I'm starting to quote myself. This is literally myself in like January 2003. You can find this on YouTube. This is a sleep-deprived Hilmar, a CTO trying to fix all the bugs. Other games focus on having people go up against monster, maybe in small groups. EVE is focused on building society and supplying the tools and the rules to operate it. So inventing a universe from scratch and providing the tools to build a society. So we have actually thought about this a lot. So this element of ownership is obviously a big proposition of blockchains in general. This idea if nobody owns the blockchain and can control it, you can really own things. And owning things is actually a pretty big invention. That is owning things without possessing it. Like this clicker that doesn't work very well could be my clicker. It would take a lot of time and effort because it doesn't have any serial number for YGG to prove this possession of mine is not what I own. It's nigh impossible. And this possession is 9/10 of the law is basically that. If somebody is currently holding something, they are 90% likely to own it. It takes an extraordinary effort to prove ownership without possession. This actually was invented by Hammurabi in Babylon 4,000 years ago. So basically Hammurabi says, I have clay tablets in the basement that list out who owns everything in my city. I have a military to protect the city. And then I have the code of Hammurabi, which are 282 rules about like what it means to violate property rights. This was invented 4,000 years ago. Ownership without possession. Little has changed. Now the king is no longer Hammurabi, it's Gabe Newell, a good friend of mine. The clay tablets are the Steam database, and the EULA is the code of Gabe Newell, which basically says your Steam library is only yours if I'm in a good mood. It kind of basically says that. And still, people like violate the code of Gabe Newell and trade skins irregardless. We at CCP run a similar phenomenon, if I can have it here. So whether it's Hammurabi, Gabe Newell, or myself, well, I have a bigger sword, just want to point that out. But we have the same here. Even if we claim all of these spaceships that are moving around the world are your spaceships, they are not really. They are subject to our end user license agreement, which gives me the right to revoke everything. And it's basically like that because it has to be like that. It's a legal requirement that we write our end user license agreement like this. Otherwise, we're regulated as a bank or a financial institution. But in this element of inventing something from scratch, and irregardless, people talk about Team Online as if it is real. We talk about like spaceship being lost and whatnot. So games are, like our database is actually not clay tablets. Again, the database, the King of England protects it, so it's not really Hammurabi, but you get the point. So we had this idea, okay, is there a way to make the database different? And then you can ask, you can't really own the precious, but you can have a name on the ledger that represents your ownership. And is that really important? You can just do right-click save on the precious, and voila, the precious is mine. But it is pretty interesting because now for the first time since Hammurabi, we actually have a concept of ownership which is not held up by violence. I have police and army to protect the tablets and uphold the code. And it's without the caveats. There isn't an end user license agreement where your own ownership is subject to terms and conditions. This actually is the first time since the history of ownership without possession that we do have it. And it does actually build for this interesting phenomenon where you could build a game that, like Game Online, is not only built by players, really is owned by players, it's secured and governed by players, again, to the CSM, etc. We could actually take the experiment of Game Online and do it for real, where all of it is real. I don't have a sword, I don't have a EULA, I literally have no more power than anyone else in the game. And that is something that appeals to us. So we have now come up with this phenomenon we call eFrontier, where again, we're building tools to build societies, as per the quote I was giving in the beginning, where we will provide bits and pieces of tool that people can build with. And we've chosen to do it on a blockchain because smart contracts actually allow you to modify the MMO on the server. We all know that MMOs used to be modded on the client, wasn't played World of Warcraft with a ton of mods, but now you can literally modify the server. And blockchains have shown you can do that in an adversarial PvP sandbox, because that is what blockchains are today. And we have been testing this now for 3 years, actually. Here are examples from our hackathon, where people are building several applications. Here's somebody that did AI mission agents. Here's somebody that made skin that needs moisturizing. And here's somebody that did a fuel station. And Breeder DAO did actually quite an amazing tournament system into the alpha build of the game. Pretty epic, and I won. And here are kind of screenshots from the alpha experience. So all of these things eventually will be built by everyone that is playing the game. You can build these massive structures, you can program them, dictate the rules, and they are yours. We're taking all of this open source, so we're very much focused on this idea that this experience should outlive us all. So going open source is a great way to do that, because if the code is locked away in a database, it also can't live on its own. So it's all going to be open, it's going to be open source, and it's truly going to be a world that we will all build together. It's even to the point, and people have done this, you can even make your own currency inside the game. Several alliances, to give you maybe a bit of context, like alliance warfare in EVE Online is often financed by issuing war bonds, where you issue a war bond, you sell it, and then you go to war, and if you win, you can pay it back. It's kind of what nations do, and it's currently done with an Excel sheet. But now people can do that through various sort of DeFi mechanisms. So if you're tired of like liquidity pool playing, you can finance warfare in eFrontier. Can promise you it's more exciting. It's almost exciting as this clicker. So we've built everything into the experience. You're watching eVault, which is kind of built into. You can still take your seed phrase and put it to MetaMask, but also we made sure everything is inside. You don't really have to do anything. This is just like playing a game. All the blockchain stuff is just blended into the sci-fi. In the sci-fi of EVE Online, you're on EVENet with eVault doing stuff with assets, which EVE Online already is kind of like that. Here are some like screenshots of the UI. This is a prototype of the star map in eFrontier. Actually, nobody has seen this. We're very much focused on sort of moment-to-moment gameplay. We are building on the engine of EVE Online, but we've spent many years now upgrading the engine in a rare opportunity because we can't really upgrade the engine in EVE. While it's running, it's quite hard, but now we've taken a lot of time to make it even better. Generally, the premise is you're building a broken world. This is another place in the universe of EVE where everything is broken, and we're coming back in to build it. Here we have another video. I'm going to skip that. Where are we? Here are some quotes from the playtest. We call it a civilization engine, a techno-barbarian hellscape, Mad Max for software engineering. So if these things appeal to you, then join our upcoming founder access test. And now I think we're playing a video. And we need the audio. Okay.
select your multitask cover and execute maneuvers outside your borders. Or you can be the defensive spider, unaware of hostile ship approaching, and have an asteroid, or you can be a friend, hiding in late to counterattack a common foe. As a newly awakened rider who is thrown into a desperate world full of death and suffering, and also bright with potential. In a vast galaxy with over 20,000 star systems, your future is yours to forge. Will you become an industrial powerhouse, a leader of a beautiful cloud of raiders, a third-party developer in high demand, or simply a lone wolf hell-bent on the thrill of surviving alone? Any frontier entry is central to both our narrative and design, amplifies the impact of their decisions, giving them greater consequence and meaning. Players are encountered with elements to cruise matter, a cornerstone of the settlement of the frontier, and an exotic material that help past colonization efforts to survive, if temporarily. The exploitation of crude matter resulted in an explosive growth in the frontier. It was also a source of great conflict. Despite the heavy reliance on crude by past civilizations, it's clear they never truly understood what their exploitation had brought. Crude matter was harvested from rifts, poured into the fabric of reality itself, and refined and developed into fuel products. Everything on the frontier consumes crude matter derivatives one way or another. If you wish to master the frontier, you must first master crude matter. One of the key features of your frontier is that players are rebuilding a broken world, both in-game and shaped by a Stargate and the galaxy itself, and through third-party development. And the gateway to this, smart assemblies allow individuals as well as groups to construct, configure, and deploy programmable and controlled infrastructure in space, owned by them and openly accessible on our carbon development platform. Interacting with smart assemblies in-game is simple. Simply fly to infrastructure, interact with it to see the functionality created by players. To ensure this feature is not game-breaking, smart assemblies, like the galaxy itself, amaze digital physics, a feature we have created that means the rules of the game world are fixed and immutable. In prior playtests, we've seen the creativity of our budding community flourish. Players are creating their own alternate improvement systems, AI mission agents, mini-games, markets, and more. To complete this ecosystem, we have created a companion app and wallet, eInvolved, allowing management of game resources and the extension of your influence beyond the game. eInvolved streamlines the management of their assets, inventory, and will allow players to oversee and control their smart assembly infrastructure. eInvolved will be in-game and as a mobile app, allowing players to seamlessly go to both to improve transaction, manage assets, and control their interactive smart assemblies all in the fly. Resources for smart assemblies are already fully accessible and public, and we continue the path forward in creating a truly open game world, built for the decades to come and beyond. Familiarity with programmable will be a bonus, but new builders and veterans alike have seen success, creating amazing things very quickly out of pre-existing knowledge. Thank you for watching this introduction to eFrontier. We look forward to December and the start of founder access, where players will be able to play the game as it continues development and give crucial feedback to the best possible space survival experience.
So, join us in making this. We're starting the persistent test as of December 5th. Thank you.